I love the Ace Attorney series, and a major reason why is because of the characters. And a major part of the cast are the rival characters, i.e. Edgeworth in the first game, Franziska in the second, and Godot in the third. However, not every rival character is made the same, and I want to go over every rival character. I'll be going over the main prosecutors, Edgeworth, Franziska, Godot, Blackwell, all of them, as well as the side characters, such as Judge Gavelle, Sebastian, and Zacharias Barnham, just to name a few. And since we have 14 characters to rank, let's get into it. Eustace is commonly called the worst prosecutor in the entire series. Since he's at the bottom of the list, I obviously agree with that sentiment. But I do want to be more positive to Eustace than most people, because there are some genuinely really good ideas for a prosecutor. Let's take 6-4 for example. In 6-4, aka Turnabout Storyteller, there's a murder involving the art of Rakugo, and Eustace stays up all night just to learn it to be good for the case. However, because he stayed up all night, he ended up forgetting key aspects of the case. It reminds me a lot of Eustace Winter from Investigations 2 with how forgetful he is. Also, the burger moment is absolutely amazing. That's all the pauses I have. His arc was rushed, he gets pretty annoying, and his backstory is basically just Edgeworth's again. Think about it. Their fathers are both attorneys, they have a connection to the main character, they're trained to be prosecutors by very corrupt people, and they become better people thanks to meeting the main characters again. Let's move on to the next rival.
I have faith in you, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, as a lawyer and as a friend.
Kazuma Asagi is fine enough. I honestly don't have much to say about him. But that's not because he's terrible. I liked it whenever he was accused of murdering Gregson, and then you had to prove his innocence from Jigoku. Let's move on to the next rival.
This court is hereby in session for the trial of Maya Fey. Are the prosecution and defense ready to proceed with opening arguments?
Wow. She's a lot like her father.
Phoenix Wright. Don't be fooled by my femininity, but do fear my name. Franziska von Karma.
I like Franziska von Karma. The reason why she's so low is because her whip gimmick is honestly really, really annoying. I genuinely don't think I laughed a single time whenever she used her whip. I don't really like the way she's written in future games. It feels like she's barely changed since her first appearance in Justice for All. However, she does have her moments. Like in Trials and Tribulations whenever Franziska goes to the hospital to give Phoenix some flowers. So let's move on to the next rival.
The Knights of the Inquisition have spent countless years trying to track down the elusive Great Witch.
Inquisitor Darklaw is another prosecutor, or rather another Inquisitor in the crossover, and I fucking love Darklaw. I love her connection to Espella, her design is amazing, she is very beautiful. Her real identity being tied in with the game's case is chef's kiss, especially whenever it comes out in the final case. It's absolutely amazing. The only thing I do not like about Darklaw is that she is revealed to ring the bell of ruin instead of Espella.
Hold it!
I believe I can fill that role.
Professor, wait, what are you saying?
I can prove, conclusively, that Espella Cantabella is, in fact, the Great Witch Bazella.
Huh?
Now, Mr. Wright, the time has come at last to settle this once and for all.
As an Inquisitor, Professor Layton is great. I like how a lot of his answers gives you hints. It really does feel in character for him. Professor could finally face off against Phoenix Wright in a game called Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright.
Lord Strongheart has told me all about you. That you're a student who arrived in London but 2 days ago. A mere amateur.
This might be a bit controversial, but the Reaper of the Bailey is kind of mid. I like him. I really do. Compared to everyone else, he's just kind of there. I like how it's practically impossible to surprise him. The only times he gets genuinely surprised is whenever Ryunosuke finds evidence that he didn't know existed. It really does make him feel more of a threat than any other prosecutor. I like the way they handle Barrick's racism too. This was a subject I was very concerned about whenever I first played the game. However, I am glad to see that they handled it really well. Clavier Gavin had really grown on me as time went on. He is an amazing character. I really like how he subverts two stereotypes at that point. The first being ace attorney prosecutors always being dickheads, and the second as rock stars being dickheads. He's like the only other prosecutor outside of another one that I'll get to later that genuinely wants justice done. I like the moment whenever he realizes his career as a prosecutor was all built on lies and turns against Kristoff. My only problem with that, though, is that I feel that they really needed to talk about Kristoff and Clavier's relationship because it does feel kind of hollow. Ji Longling is the rival of Edgeworth in the first Investigations game. I genuinely love Agent Lang. My biggest problem with him, though, is that he's only in 2 cases in the original game as a main player. It's in the 4th, sure, but that's only for a singular sentence. He's only in I-13 and I-15. He remind me a lot of Cedric from Sophia the First in a way. I think it's more so just because they're both main characters, but they also appear very little. Meanwhile, throughout Sophia the First's 109 episodes, Cedric is only in 30 of them. Believe it or not, but Agent Lang really is only in 3 cases in both games. He's in I-13, I-15, and I-25. Which is weird because I always thought he was in a lot more than only 3. But that is really the biggest problem I have with Lang. He really does need a lot more screen time. Verity Gavelle was a character that I was not expecting to like as much as I did. She started off as an incredibly annoying character. She's like that for a good chunk of the game until the final stretch of the 4th case. She really is just like that. However, the 5th case made her a much better character. I particularly enjoyed seeing her so overprotective of her Sean. It was honestly adorable. Zacharias Barnham is the most underrated prosecutor in the series. The reason why I think he does not get enough recognition is mainly because he was shafted hard in the 3rd act. After he gets accused of treason, the last time you see him is on the boat during the ending cutscene. I've seen some people mad at that, and while I do get it, I don't agree when people say that it ruined his arc, because his arc was already over at the time, so I personally don't mind it as much. I started off really liking Barnham. However, I loved him after the 4th episode, the Golden Court, and directly leading into the 5th episode, A Taste of Despair. You leave the courtroom and then encounter Barnham. It is genuinely one of my favorite moments from any Ace Attorney game. Seeing Phoenix so uncharacteristically angry is really good, and I love whenever Barnham offers Phoenix to cut him down with his sword to avenge Maya. Barnham might be the only other prosecutor that wants genuine justice. In this case, it's finding all of the witches in Labyrinthia, as that is his duty. And I do like how he is genuinely really concerned about finding witches. Like whenever the defense convinces Barnham to call Grey Earl to the stand because she might be a witch. He could have easily just said no, but he decided to do it anyway. Also, like, he will defend you if you're a witness if he genuinely thinks that you are innocent. I love Eustace Winter. He, like Gavelle, starts off as an incredibly annoying character. However, just like Gavelle, he starts to get a lot better during the 4th case before he becomes a legitimately good character in the 5th. In fact, during the 5th case, he became one of my favorite Ace Attorney characters in the series. I also really liked seeing him deal with his abusive father and having him become a competent prosecutor. It's a nice twist on the typical Ace Attorney prosecutor prodigy trope.
Regardless the circumstance, I intend to question the defendant with all I have. For that is a part of my creed.
The only reason Edgeworth is at number 3 is just because I feel like our next two are more entertaining and are better characters than him.
Now why don't we get to work? I'd like to call a witness.
Godot has always been one of my favorite characters in the series. He's probably my number 1 as a character, not as a rival. He is a very tragic and very entertaining character. There's an excellent video that's a character analysis made by King Crew. I'll leave it in the description. I genuinely recommend you watch it. The only reason why Godot is not my number 1 is because I think my number 1 is just a bit more entertaining to me.
Yup, Prosecutor Blackwell's an inmate.
I love Simon Blackwell. He is constantly hilarious. His gimmick is extremely entertaining. Like whenever he would play with people's minds, like in the 2nd case, whenever he made Apollo close up his own contradiction.